In a crowded airport, the facade of power and privilege becomes a battleground, and the faint whispers of camaraderie amplify a pivotal moment destined for infamy. One man's impulse to expose a gleaming wealth breeds shadows of regret as an emerging truth surfaces. Can an underdog rise from the ashes of his blunders, or will he remain shackled by the very judgments he cast? Central City Airport buzzed with energy, a vast transit hub where the mingling of cultures and personalities came alive among the bustling concourses. Travelers streamed through the airy terminal, each person immersed in their own narrative, weaving in and out of storefronts and cafes. The scent of fresh coffee wafted through the air, mingling with the distant hum of rolling luggage and announcements that echoed above. It was here amidst the chaos and vibrancy that Jake found himself, mid-30s, weary yet resilient, a baggage handler often cloaked in the shadows of privilege, feeling invisible against the backdrop of high-profile patrons. Jake carried the weight of frustration like an old backpack, fraying at the edges yet filled to the brim with unsaid words. The non-stop display of wealth smothered him, leaving a bitter taste. Today, his keen eyes landed on Ivanka Trump, elegant and commanding, as she breezed through the airport accompanied by an entourage. She wore confidence like a tailored coat, effortlessly embodying the luxury Jake despised. She was the embodiment of privilege, a Goliath he both resented and envied. As he watched her interact with staff, dismissing their greetings as mere formalities, a quiet anger simmered within him. Perhaps today would be different. With his co-workers echoing disdain and laughter beside him, an idea took root, an impulse to confront, to provoke, to expose the arrogance that cloaked her, bringing his sudden weight of experience and observation to a head. In doing so, would he finally be seen? The air buzzed with a cacophony of voices mingling with the incessant hum of rolling luggage wheels and the sporadic announcements echoing through Central City Airport's sprawling concourses. Bright neon signs illuminated the polished floors, where travelers hustled past gleaming storefronts and vibrant cafes. A blend of cultures swarmed about, yet here, behind the scenes, Jake toiled away as a beleaguered baggage handler, his hands sore from endless lifting and his spirit heavy from relentless exposure to unearned privilege. Today, the spotlight shone as Ivanka Trump sashayed through the terminal with her entourage, adorned in designer garments that shimmered under the overhead lights. Jake squinted as he watched her glide past, an embodiment of affluence disdainfully unaware of the burdens carried by the workers around her. Murmurs of his co-workers swirled like a gale force around him, expressing their contempt and justifying the notion that people like Ivanka were a breed apart. Then nature took its course. Jake overheard a heated exchange in which a fellow bag handler dismissed Ivanka, calling her just a rich girl playing dress-up, and a spark ignited inside him. Convinced that today he'd take a stand, he felt the stirrings of rebellion, even if the face of that rebellion was merely a celebrity beneath his scorn. A slight twinge of dread fluttered in his stomach, but the adrenaline of camaraderie oftentimes drowned out caution. The conflict was brewing, waiting for a moment to explode. As Jake made his way through the airport terminal, his heart raced with a mixture of anger and anticipation. The air buzzed with the drone of travelers, but all he could focus on was Ivanka, gliding through an entourage as if she were walking on a red carpet. The laughter of his co-workers echoed behind him, fueling the fire brewing within. "Look at her," he muttered under his breath, bitterness lacing his words. "She doesn't see the people around her. She thinks she's above it all." He could feel their eyes on him, urging him on, a chorus of muffled encouragement surrounding him like a shield of camaraderie. "You should say something, Jake," one of them nudged, grinning wickedly. It was a challenge he couldn't resist. With a deep breath, he stepped forward, fueled by a surge of bravado born from frustration. "Hey, Ivanka!" he shouted, punctuating his words with a sarcastic chuckle. "Didn't think we'd see you slumming it with the rest of us today." The laughter from his colleagues erupted like fireworks, but the laughter quickly faltered as Ivanka turned slowly, her expression unreadable. Instead of responding in kind, she regarded him with a calmness that unsettled him. "Slumming it? In the world we live in, Jake, I think we'd all match our footwear depending on the mud we've stepped in," she countered coolly, her voice smooth but filled with an edge. Jake's bravado wavered at her unexpected retort. "What do you know about mud?" he spat, but his voice lacked conviction. Her composed demeanor only heightened the tension. He could feel the laughing eyes of his co-workers dulling to uneasy silence, the crowd shifting from amusement to a taut curiosity. "We all have our battles to fight, don't we?" she said, her gaze unwavering. "But remember, mocking someone doesn't make your fight any easier." The words cut through Jake like a jolt. A rush of regret mingled with the adrenaline of the moment. Their eyes locked, phrases hung unspoken in the air, the distance between them abruptly shrinking, yet widening with realization. What initially felt like a victory turned into a battle he hadn't expected, his wounds of pride exposed and the complexities of the very privilege he wished to critique suddenly blurring into the very confusion he felt inside. The crowd's laughter had barely died down when Ivanka's voice cut through the murmurs, steady and unyielding. "You think your mocking words hold weight, but it's you who chooses to belittle what you don't understand," she retorted, her eyes narrowing on Jake, who suddenly felt the heat of her gaze pinning him in place. The audience shifted, their laughter replaced with a palpable tension. "You think this is a game? This is my life," she continued, stepping closer, her presence commanding attention. "I may embody privilege, but I work harder than you can imagine. I've had to fight for every ounce of respect, just like you." Jake's bravado began to wane. He could feel the tension crackling as co-workers quietly evaluated his bravado against Ivanka's unyielding composure. Jake opened his mouth, searching for a sardonic reply, but the words evaporated. The very people he'd sought to impress now observed him with a new clarity. Their laughter had morphed into astonished silence. As the media swarmed the scene like vultures ready to feast on a fresh carcass, Jake realized he wasn't just in trouble, he was on the verge of becoming a cultural punchline. Social media exploded with hashtags baggage handler brawl and Navarnash David Vaz Goliath, flinging his name into a whirlpool of ridicule and admiration alike. The contrast between their reactions further unsettled Jake. Was he a hero for standing up to an icon, or merely a fool whose anger had clouded his judgment? Jake felt a knot form in his stomach as the tide of public perception shifted beneath him. The energy of the crowd had transformed from playful amusement to a tense battlefield. Could he reclaim his dignity from the jaws of this immense publicity storm? And as he grappled with his own failings, he couldn't shake off the haunting question. Had he inadvertently become everything he despised? Jake stood by the luggage carousel, the hum of machinery blending with the scattered conversations around Central City Airport. His heart raced, fueled by the whirlwind of humiliation and self-reproach. Today's confrontation with Ivanka Trump echoed in his mind, relentless and unforgiving. A group of eager travelers had witnessed his reckless attempt to publicly embarrass her, a display he once thought empowering. Now it felt as hollow as the stares from his co-workers, their laughter replaced by a stifling silence as they cast sidelong glances at him. "Jake, what were you thinking?" One of his colleagues finally broke the tension, their voice tinged with disbelief. "You've turned into a meme overnight. This isn't what we wanted." Jake swallowed hard, shame coiling around him like a snake. "I thought I was standing up for us," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, yet carrying the weight of his own failures. Before he could further defend himself, the sound of polished heels clicking against the terminal floor jolted him from his haze. Ivanka emerged, flanked by security, her expression unreadable. She paused before him, eyes sharp and focused. "Do you feel brave now?" she asked, her tone both patient and powerful. "You belittled me thinking it would elevate you. But does it? Because to me it looks like you're drowning in your own bitterness." "Maybe I am," he admitted. The fear of exposing his vulnerability wrestled within him, yet he found himself drawn in by her steady gaze. "But you're not just some symbol of privilege. You're more than that, aren't you?" This small insight shifted something within him. A spark of empathy lit against the frigid walls he had built. She nodded, compassion surfacing in her eyes. "We're all more than the labels society places on us, Jake. You turned your prejudice into a weapon, but you can choose differently." Looking into her eyes, he realized the real battle lay not outside, but within. Here, In this moment of raw honesty, he stood at a crossroads. The turning point sank in, grounding him, signaling a new path forward, one towards humility, growth, and the hope of understanding. Jake stood at the airport terminal, a newfound weight in his heart. The confrontation with Ivanka had reshaped not just his perspective, but also his purpose. Apologies exchanged and a deeper understanding forged, he recognized the fragility of prejudgments. Where once he found solace in mockery, he now sought connection, championing the dignity of his fellow workers. As he re-entered the bustling environment, colleagues approached, their expressions a blend of curiosity and caution. "How did it go with her?" one asked. "She's not who I thought," Jake replied, his voice steadier than before. "I learned that everyone carries their battles and burdens." With renewed passion, Jake initiated discussions among the staff, advocating for meaningful changes in their work environment. He realized that true strength lay in empathy, not derision. The experience had become a catalyst for growth, inviting both him and others to embrace understanding amid divides, capturing the essence of human experience and the strength found in bridging differences.